Okay, thanks for watching. Time to do another step. In this next video, what I'm going to do is take the cleaned reeds and the prepared reed block and first of all valve all the reeds and then wax the reeds back into the reed block. Now I have done this on other videos, so I am aware that people might have seen this before, but the reason I wanted to do it in this video is because I like to keep the whole set of videos for a particular accordion in order and show the whole process. So apologies if you've seen this before, and obviously you may have watched it on other videos, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to do it anyway. Now the first thing before I do anything else though is it's a nice interesting thing to do with the reed block. So the reed block's made of wood and it sits on the treble side of the accordion, and what I'm going to do here is just try to make sure that this reed block is as flat as I can make it. So I'm going to show you how I do it. So what I'm going to do is get my pencil and I'm going to make some lines, some kind of diagonal lines, just all the way, not a diagonal, actually going straight across these ones, all the way across the bottom of the reed block. So trying to do the same thickness of line, same kind of amount of line if you like, or hardness of push, if that makes any sense whatsoever, as on the bottom of the reed block, like so. In fact I might do a line down the middle as well. So what I'm doing is put a pencil line on here, and then I'm going to run this bottom of the reed block along a flat true surface. So what I've got here is the back of a mirror, which is glass, which is as flat as I can get. And what I'm going to do then is, if I just turn it around a little bit, is use this as a base, and I've got some sanding sheets, which are they're really designed for sanding electrical sanders, so you can fit them on, but they're quite long, so I think this is going to be quite good. So what I'm going to do is just leave that on there, and I've got my reed block, and as I push it down onto that piece of sandpaper, you can see that, that's on a flat plane, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just push this back and forwards across this flat plane. So I'm pushing it down onto the glass, if you like, as I'm sanding it. And what I'm going to do is to keep going until all the pencil lines have gone. And the reason for that is that if they had a low point in that bottom of the reed block, that pencil line, once you've done your first pass, would still be there, but the pencil lines on the higher part would have been rubbed off. So if you keep going until you get all the pencil lines off, then you've got, as good as you can get it really, a nice flat even surface. So because over time that just might get a little bit warped, a bit wet, might just get a bit curved for some reason. So what I'm going to do is just keep going like this across a nice flat surface like that until all the pencil lines have gone. So at the moment it's just the ends, so I'm going to keep going with that. I won't film everything because it's not the most exciting thing to watch, but I'm going to keep going until the pencil lines have gone on, and I've got a flat surface on the bottom of the reed block. Okay, so I'll come back in a sec. Okay, so now I've got all the pencil lines off, so that's now ready to be used. And what happens here is, because it's nice and flat, this means as it's going into the accordion, you've got the best chance of having a good seal with as little air leakage as possible. So I'm quite happy with that. That's turned out really nicely. So that's now completely ready for waxing. Right, now then, so just now come to the reeds themselves, which are here. So what I might do now is I'm just going to zoom in the lens a bit so that I can just show exactly what I'll do. So give me a second, I'll just stop this. Okay, so I've arranged all of the reeds in pitch order. That's my high set and my low set. And then here in my little trays, I've got 5 different sizes of valves. So these are my smallest valves up to a medium size, and what I've got is just hundreds of these valves in each little tray and they're all the same size in each tray, and they're gradually getting bigger. So for these sets of reeds, these are the size of valves that I'll need, because my largest ones are just a little bit longer than the biggest reed here, so I won't need anything more than this set here. So what I'm going to do now is work out which valves to use for each reed. So what I'm trying to do is find the smallest possible valve that will fit properly onto the reed, so it covers the whole reed plate in terms of the width and the length, and but I don't want to put too big a valve onto a smaller reed plate and then just trim it down, because that valve could be too wide, could be too thick, too heavy, and it could affect the way that the reed sounds when air is pushed over it. So what I'm going to try and do is just to work out what size of valves I can get away with, as small as I can, so as not to impede the actual sounding of the note. So I'm just going to go along and I'm going to choose which of these valves match best to all of these reeds, and when I've done that I'll show you how I've got on. Okay, so I've now got all of my valves next to the reeds. If I turn it that way, they might be a bit easy to see actually, like that. So I've laid them out with a pair of valves above each reed, and because I've got two identical, well not identical, same pitch of reeds high and low, I've made sure I've got the same valve on each pair of reeds, so that they will play together with the same valve opening and closing, to make it as even as possible. So they're in pairs, and I've used altogether 1, 2, 3, yes, I've used 4 different sizes of valves on these reeds. Yeah, and that seems to have covered all the sizes. So the next step is to glue the valves on. Now the trick here is to get the proper glue. Now you can get Hohner valve glue, which I've used really successfully, but it's quite expensive. But equally as good, so I've done a lot of accordions with this, is, what is it called? Botern, B-O-T-E-R-M, and it's like this. It's a shoe glue, and it's a kind of a yellow, red and blue tube. They've got some other ones Botern, but the yellow, red and blue Botern shoe glue like this is brilliant, and it's a little bit cheaper, quite a lot cheaper than the Hohner glue, and I think actually works a little bit better. And so then I'll just get my little pot, put the glue on the top, just a little bit at a time, because it does start to dry, so you can't put gallons onto your pot, so just put enough just to do a few valves. And then when I'm gluing the valve onto the reed, if I just take this reed here, so we've got the, I can just focus up, so you've got the rivet and the valve there, so you've got the back side of the rivet on the slot. So I'm going to butt up the valve against that rivet and get it nice and straight, and the amount of glue that I put onto the valve, if you imagine the width of the valve, so the width of the valve, I'm going to put that much as the length of glue, so I'd end up with a square of glue on that valve, and that should be just the right amount of glue for that valve. So just kind of a square of glue on the end of the valve. Make sure you got it the right way up, and then just quickly then attach it nicely to the reed plate, butting against the rivet, push it and just hold it for a second or two, and then just leave it to dry for another minute or two. So that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to go around all of these and just do the first layer on both of these, then I'm going to turn them over and put the second valve on the other side, and I'll show you when I've done all the valving. Okay, so all of the reeds have been valved, which is great, and I've just tried to do it as neatly as I could, and that's really a key thing when you're doing this, because you want to try and keep the amount of glue you put on consistent, you know, the position of the valve consistent, so that the aim is to have as consistent a sounding accordion as possible. So if you have valved reeds consistently, and then you wax them in consistently, you know, the reeds are operating consistently, so the reed tongues are at the right height and everything else, and you get like a more evenly playing accordion, which is how it should be. So I've tried to do it as consistent as possible. The next step is to get some sharp scissors. So I've just got a few here. I've got a nice pair here. These are actually hair dressing scissors, but they're just really, really sharp. And what I'm going to do now is going to take a valve and trim it. And the idea, so let's try and focus on what am I just, there we are. The idea is to trim the valve so that the end of the valve is just about 1 millimetre over the end of the slot. And so I'm going to trim that carefully with a pair of sharp scissors. And then there's a second layer on this valve, the white bit here, and that's a kind of supporting layer which kind of just helps to keep the reed valve flat. So what I normally do is, if I've trimmed, say, a couple of mil off the end of the valve here, then I'll trim a couple of mils off the supporting layer, and that just kind of keeps the ratio between the supporting layer and the underneath layer the same. So whatever I've taken off here, I'll just take off there as well. And just, yeah, very sharp pair of scissors, and just carefully and as neatly as you can keep them square, keep the reed valves square when you cut them. And that's it really. So I'm just going to go around all the reeds and trim all the valves, so they're just about 1 millimetre over the end of the slot, if you like. And then once I've done all of that, going to be ready for starting in the waxing. So I'll show you when I've just trimmed all the valves. Okay, there we are. So all the reeds are nicely valved. I've trimmed the valves, and what I've also done, I've just gone around the reeds and just checked the tip heights to make sure there's none that are choking, so the tip's completely flat against the reed plate, and there's none with too big a gap between the reed tip and the reed plate. And I've just carefully checked those and made any adjustments. I've done some other videos about doing that, but I have checked the reed heights as well as doing the trimming of the valves. So these are all now ready to be waxed in to the reed block. And so what I'm going to do now is get my wax. Now the wax, excuse me, let's get this out. I've got this, there we are, it's a kind of a leg wax heater, but works really well for this. And I've got my own recipe for wax, which is made of beeswax, rosin and some vegetable oil. So I've got 60% beeswax, 40% rosin, and a tablespoon of sunflower oil, I think it was. And that's my mixture. And so I need to get that heated up so it's nice and runny in the heater, but not overheating, because if you get it too hot it can actually catch fire. So just keep it at a nice temperature so it's nice and runny, but not overheating it. Actually, with these heaters, it's quite difficult to overheat them because they don't go above a certain temperature. So it's when you do it on your cooker in a saucepan, that's when you can get a real danger of the wax catching fire. But with these, it's a bit more tricky to get the wax to catch fire, which is a good thing. So the next little bit of this video is where I'm just going to demonstrate the waxing in technique. But before doing that, I need to get the wax heated up and get my tools ready. So I'll just stop this for a second and then come back when I'm ready to start waxing them in. Good morning, and this is the next little clip on this Pietro restoration. I've now revolved all the reeds, and I've just made sure they're all in the right order just by gently pinging them and listening to the tone, making sure they're completely in pitch order. And I've got them set into 2 sets, so I've got the higher tuned and the lower tuned, so I know which is which. And so they're all now ready to be waxed into the the reed block. Also made sure that I've got the little diagonal scratch line I put on each reed plate uppermost, kind of know which way up the reed is going to go into the reed block. So that's all good. Now the reed block is ready. I've cleaned it and sanded it and got rid of all the dust and everything else, so that's all ready for waxing the reeds into. And I've clearly marked which side of the reed block is going to have which reeds, so that I can get modelled up. And what I'm going to do is, just to make the job a bit neater, is I'm going to get some electrical tape and I'm just going to tape all the way neatly across the top and down there. And what that means is that when I finish waxing and I take the tape off, you just get a nice clear surface, so it just looks more professional. So I'm going to get some electrical tape and just going to make a nice neat, so I'm going to start on this side, so a nice neat line and there as well, and that's just going to help with the overall look once the waxing has been finished. So that's my little bit of tape. Just get that all nice, just aiming for a nice professional result once I've finished. Okay, so that's ready to go. That's nice. I've got my wax heating up in my wax heater, and so that's just nicely warmed up now, so I've got that ready. That's my own concoction, so I think it was 60% beeswax pellets, 40% rosin, and a tablespoonful of olive oil, all mixed up. And that seems to give me a nice consistency, nice mixture that works well for waxing in. So that's ready, and I've got a couple of nice brushes. So I avoid the kind of really cheap brushes you can get from pound store or anything like that, because they just don't do a job properly. These actually I got them from a model making shop, so the kind of brushes that you use for, you know, painting like kits and models and trains and planes, things like that. They're just a little bit better. So I've got a couple of those ready, and just got a little bit of a cloth just to mop up any mess. Yep, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move the camera just so that you get a better picture of how I do the waxing in. And so just let me just stop, move the camera, and then you can see a better view. Okay, so this is my setup, ready to go. Wax is ready to go. So I'm going to take my first reed, so I'm going to go this way along the reed block, making sure I've got my little diagonal line on the top, so that reed's all ready to go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a thin layer of this reed wax around the first chamber, so all the way around, and then I'm going to press the reed down into that soft wax. That molten wax is very soft, so I'm going to push it down to, it's kind of, the reed will go down to the wood, and then it will just create a little seal around that reed. And then once I've got that reed in, I'm going to go round all the sides again with my brush, and then do the same thing for the next chamber. Okay, so let's just start that one. So here we go. So a bit of wax on the brush, quite a fine brush, just to get that fully prepared. There we go. So I'm going to start with my first. It's a bit difficult to film this. First, all the way around like this. And this is where having the reed rock prepared properly is really important. So it's all nice and smooth. The wood's nice and smooth, and just a little coating of wax all the way around, so it's all nice and soft. Molten wax. Leave that there for a second. Pick up the first reed, and then do it that way maybe. So push the reed into that wax, push it down, make sure it's nice and central. So that's now pushed down nicely into that wax, and then I get a little brush and I'm just going to go carefully around the bottom edge without getting any wax on the reed or the valve, because that will just then mean that reed won't work. So you just have to be very careful with a steady hand, just to be nice and still. So the more care you take with this, the better result, obviously. So it's not something you can kind of think, oh, I'll do this really quick, let me just rush this, but that will just be disaster, and you did have to just start everything again. So I'm tipping the reed block, and so that wax is just running down the side. There we go. I've got my first reed in, and all I'm going to do now is to repeat the process. So a little layer of wax around the next chamber, push the reed into that soft wax, push it down to the wood, and then just go around carefully with a little brush around all the edges, top, sides and bottom, and repeat. I'll do it as carefully as I can, and once I've finished that whole line, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, see you in a sec. Okay, I'm just doing it, put that in a second. That's all done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to peel the tape off, and just have a little look at what this all looks like. So having that tape just gives you a nice clean finish. Line it in. There we are. So that's my nicely waxed in reeds. It's all looking nice and neat. So I'm going to then leave that and not touch the those reeds now. Let that wax cool down. So don't do anything yet. I don't normally leave the wax for overnight really before doing tuning or anything. But anyway, I've got to do the other side anyway. So I'm going to wax those ones in, and then I will be doing exactly the same thing for the black notes on the treble side, which are these ones. Do exactly the same for that. And I've also got this reed block from the bass side. That's the one that comes out, so I'll be doing exactly the same for that one. Apart from that, these ones, rather than being tuned with tremolo tuning, they're just that one and that one, each side are an octave apart. So that makes it a bit easier to work out which one goes where. So I'm going to put that one, those as well. And then the other thing is that the final reed block on the bass side is this one, and this one's actually glued into the bass side of the accordion, so this reed block doesn't come out. It's designed to stay where it is. And so for this one, what I'm going to be doing is removing the reeds, cleaning them, revolving them as usual, but rather than having the reed block out of the accordion, I'm going to have to wax the reeds with the reed block in the accordion. So when I get to that one, I might just do another little video showing that final reed block, because that's a little bit of a challenge, and so I might do that as a separate little video. But I'm now going to crack on and do all the other standard kind of reed blocks. So this one, and the other side of that one. Get all those done, and then that will be the majority of the reed sorted, and then I'll do a little video on the final reed block, which is a bit more of a challenge. Okay, so I hope that was useful, and see you in the next one.